Welcome to the Power Lunch Live on LinkedIn. I'm Rhett Power, your host. We do this program Monday through Friday now. Well, that's a new thing. We used to do it on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but we've expanded the program because we're having so much fun. But anyway, the point of the show is to bring on thought leaders, CEOs, corporate leaders, best-selling authors, to learn about their secrets to success, learn about what they're doing in their companies and in their work that can help us be better in ours. So the fun part of the show is that it's interactive. So if you have questions today, please ask them because that's why we're here. We're here to learn from our guests. And one of the best ways to do that is to ask your questions so that you get to the heart of what you want to know. Now, we do simulcast this on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and as well as LinkedIn with the help of Social Live. And if you like the program, give a like or share. So that people in your network can benefit from these conversations just like you. Now, my promise to you is to bring you the very best. We've done that today. I've got Jon Rennie. He's a business leader, best-selling author, and speaker. He is co-founder and president of Peak Demand Incorporated. He's a former naval officer on a nuclear submarine. And his new book is I Have the Watch, Becoming a Leader Worth Following. Jon, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rhett. It's good to be here.
I love props.
You gotta have a prop, right? If it's on video, right?
That's right. Hey, well, thank you so much, man, for Jon for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I want to jump right into questions, but how did your military service? I know you're working on a new book. I saw. How did it impact the way you operate in business?
Well, I think the one thing, it was a great foundation to learn leadership is being in the Navy, especially being on a submarine, because one of the unique things about a submarine crew is you shut the hatch and you're gone for 110 days with the same crew that you left port with, which meant that you had to learn how to get along with people, because there is no firing somebody, there is no getting rid of somebody, there is no swapping with another department because the personalities aren't working out.
Right.
You have to learn how to accomplish very, very difficult tasks, right? I mean, a submarine at sea, nuclear weapons, nuclear reactor, all that stuff, very complicated with the people that you have when you left port. So it was a really good foundation in leadership, because I think it's really helped me over the years just learn to get along with people, even people I don't like, or maybe people I didn't trust initially, but it really helped me be a much better leader from that standpoint, just being able to deal with different personality types.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of an interesting leadership lab, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of this you can't like turn it off at the end of the day, right? It's 24 hours, 7 days a week. And I guess it's actually fascinating to me because, when I remember one of my first management jobs or leadership jobs, and, my manager said, well, you've got to have, now that you're a manager, you've got to have this sort of distance between you and your employees. And, there's got to be, you're not their friend anymore. Right. And I don't think I subscribe to that, but you can't have those sort of the divisions and on a submarine, can you?
No, I mean, that's the one thing that was unique. People say, well, you were in the military, so you have this command and control attitude towards people. Well, then I have to remind them I was actually on a submarine, and in a submarine, it's very tight quarters. So in a room the size of my office right here, there would be 4 of us standing watch, running the nuclear power plant. And so you'd stand watch for 6 hours at a time. So I would be the officer, I would be the watch officer, and I would have 3 enlisted people on watch with me. And that was 6 hours, 4 people in a room smaller than this office. And so how do you keep your distance in terms of having a relationship with those people? I know everything about them, right? you've heard every story, you've heard every girlfriend, what their hobbies are. You really get to know people when you're spending that much intimate time with each other. And if you think about today, where everybody's got a cell phone and their head's down in a cell phone or on a screen, we don't connect anymore as people. And I think that those formative years of spending 6 hours at a time just talking to people, getting to know them, I think really set maybe my leadership style in place, where I really get to know my people that I work with today very well. I know their wives, I know their husbands, I know their birthdays, I know their kids' names, I know what things are going on in their life. And I think it makes a difference in how you lead an organization, is to show that you actually care about them as a person.
No, I was going to say that. I think that's part of. I think to me, it's part of the building a team that is engaged. It's part of building a team that cares about what they're doing, cares about the organization that they're working for. Is there anything in your hiring then, I mean, that you look for when you hire? Is there any advice there for people listening, watching, that you found to sort of help in your hiring process?
Well, there's two things I really look at. I mean, obviously there's really a third, which is, will it be a fit in an organization personality wise? But two really big things I look at is, have you demonstrated competency in your craft? So if you're a marketing guy, or gal, show me where you've demonstrated that you're highly competent at your task. If you're a manufacturing engineer, show me what you've done, or tell me what you've done. And the other thing I look for, and this is really hard to find, and the way you find it is just by asking the right questions. But I want to find people that have overcome adversity. That seems to be a really good trait for people to be persistent and to be passionate at what they're doing.
Right.
And Duckworth called it grit, right? I'm looking for that grit. I'm looking for somebody that may have been, he was a 2-tour over in Iraq veteran who's had to overcome some stuff, that, or somebody that maybe, took them 6 years, 7 years to get their college degree as they were working full time. I want to know, what have you done to overcome adversity in your life? So demonstrate a competency, grit. Show me that you have the ability to overcome, and then does it feel like a fit within the organization? Because that's a really interesting part, right? So every time you bring in a new team member, is that puzzle piece going to fit in right or not? And some personality types just don't fit well with others, right? They don't play well with others. So I saw a quote one time that said, part of the job of the leader is to get everybody in the rowing, getting everybody rowing in the same direction.
Right.
The other thing you need to do is make sure there's not somebody on the boat drilling a hole in the bottom of the boat, right? And I've actually led organizations where I've had some toxic personalities who were trying to kind of undermine what the team was trying to do. So getting that puzzle piece to fit is also that third element. So there's really kind of three things I look for.
And I mean, I've had those people on my teams too, and I think you can't hesitate to make changes when you have that kind of that kind of person, because I don't think that the longer that you ignore that problem, the worse it's going to create issues on your team. So I don't know if you feel the same way, but.
Yeah, well, in fact, my new book's got a whole chapter on run to the fire, right? So on a submarine, we were all trained firefighters. And what that meant was, when there was a fire, if you didn't get to it quickly, right, the heat, the gases, everything, it would kill the crew faster than anything. So we were all trained as a firefighter, and we were trained to run to the fire. And when I came out of the military, came into corporate America, first thing I noticed was everybody was running away from problems, right? They were, so anything bad happened, you'd see people kind of moving away slowly. So,
get out of the picture.
And including toxic personalities and people that have personality issues, right? So a lot of times leaders don't address that. And then that little fire gets to become a bigger fire, right? And so it creates almost a growing cancer with an organization. So I guess, one of the lessons I took away from, being a leader on a submarine, which was attack problems before they get bigger. So, attack those personality issues if you have them, or customer issues if you have them, or, industry situations, shifts in technology. You've got to run to the fire. You got to be there and take care of it before it gets out of control. That's
a good life lesson too for anybody, isn't it? I think that deal with problems head on, deal with them quickly, so that they don't create bigger ones. I think that's great advice. What's the biggest mistake you've ever made in your company, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I mean, I'll give you one example. So when we started this particular company, we wanted to have a really good range of portfolio of products so that we could appeal to as many customers as we could. Mm-hmm. So we took one product line it's a very old historic product. It's actually a porcelain insulator. It's very much a commodity product. And so we designed our own version of it. We tested it. We spent, thousands of dollars putting it through the test lab. We brought in our initial orders quantities, because a lot of porcelain's made offshore. It's not made in the U.S. anymore. So we brought in all our quantities, and then we thought we had a good cost position to sell to the market. So we launched the product, and we start hearing more and more about how expensive the logistics of shipping a pallet of these porcelain insulators, and the cost of shipping was actually more than the product itself. And the volumes that you had to deal with to be profitable were way beyond the volumes that we were getting. And so we were just outmatched by large suppliers that had that volume of business. We couldn't do it at a low volume. The numbers just didn't work. And so we had spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort in a startup company, which you don't have a lot of, to have a product that really nobody was interested in, because we couldn't get to the right cost on logistics.
I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where everything made sense until you realize it was really the shipping issue that was the issue, and the products that we've dealt with all in the past were higher technology and lighter, and so there was room to play with logistics. With this particular product, there was no room, and we underestimated the difficulty of it. And so now I have, I've been selling what I have, but I'm no longer selling that product. So, that was one of we say that's our biggest mistake that we made coming into a new company, is getting excited about something and diving into it without fully understanding how that particular product makes money, or assuming we knew because we know other products really well. So we made some assumptions and we were wrong. And it cost us money. And that's, I think there's a learning curve with every startup business, and it's especially more painful with startups because you don't have that, that large bank account that you do with the bigger companies. So those lessons they're embedded in you, and you'll never make them again. That's for sure. So they're good to have.
I feel your pain. I had this product one time, and I can't remember it was related to it. It was a toy product, and it was related to a TV show, but it was what was the name of it? Anyway, it had bomb in the title.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so when we shipped it into the United States, customs held it and tore it all apart, tore the whole couple shipments apart. It took so long in customs that the client canceled the order. And so we had this stuff in the warehouse, and this was probably a $200,000 mistake, right? Mm-hmm. And it sat in our warehouse. It's probably still sitting in that warehouse, but I know what you mean. And that was a labeling problem. We shouldn't known, right? Somebody
sure. Naming a product can be it could be a home run, or it can be a strikeout.
Yeah. Customs was not amused that there was something labeled bomb in the manifest. What is one of the things I coach a lot of clients on is communicating vision. And how do you, coming from a larger companies for a lot of your career, coming into your own, starting your own company, when you were working in manufacturing, working in running the plants and running operations, to today where you're running your own shop, how do you communicate vision? What are some ways that you think are really effective in getting people all on the same page?
So that's actually a chapter in my book,
Right.
because I think it's really important. Leadership. I always say leadership is simple, right? It's encouraging, motivating a group of people to accomplish a goal. There's three things. It's influence, people, and a goal, right?
Right.
And most leaders or most managers get busy in their day and they don't do any of those three, right? They're not influencing, they're not spending time with their people, and they're not talking about what the goals are of the organization. They're doing their emails or they're in meetings or what have you.
Right.
So one lesson I learned is actually from my wife. My wife was a teacher, or she still is a teacher, but when I was a young officer in the Navy, she was teaching at a public school in Georgia, and she had an amazing leader as a principal.
Okay.
And their objective as that particular county school system was to maximize the time of teaching for each student. They wanted the teachers to teach and not do admin stuff. So he reminded them every day. He would just say 4 words. He'd say, "Stand up and teach. Stand up and teach." And he would say that to them all the time. So much so that my wife, whenever she would find herself doing a task or whatever, sitting down at her desk and grading papers, and there were students in the room, she heard her leader's voice saying, "Stand up and teach," and she'd go teach. And so there was vision being communicated every day in every meeting, and it was an effective way to communicate the vision, and it left a lasting impression on her. So, many years later, she still tells that story, and she still, even as a teacher today, she hears that leader's words in her mouth, in her ears, and she's like, "I've got to stand up and teach." So we do the same thing here, and our vision is to be, we call it, a different kind of supplier. So that's our message. We want to be different than all of the big guys in our industry, right? So a lot of times, so I will say that in we have a stand-up meeting every morning. We have all our employees gather and we talk about what's going to get done for the day. And any issue comes up, like, we have this customer problem, and we can't get the parts. Should we airship the parts in to be able? I said, we're a different kind of supplier. We're going to airship those parts and we're going to take care of the customer, because the other guys won't do that. So we remind. So it's almost, being a startup, it's easier because you've got the founder message, right? Which is, we're a different kind of supplier. We want to act differently, do things differently. And so, but we use 4 words, different kind of supplier, as a way to communicate that on a daily, hourly basis of who we are and why we're, who we are in the market and how we're going to operate compared to our competitors. So what your vision and your mission and your goals can't be is a thick, 5-inch binder sitting on a dusty shelf somewhere. It's got to be lived. It's got to be talked about. And there's going to be decisions every day. And so you got to go back to, what is it that who we are as a company. The other thing we did is we created 9 guiding principles. So we have 9 things that we say, these are our priorities. And we want to make sure. And so one of the things on the list is we will only create high integrity products. And what we define that is that any product that we sell to this marketplace has been fully tested, fully vetted. It is ready to be able to be on the grid for 40 years. So we only sell high integrity products. Well, when you make that as a guiding principle, there's opportunities to cut corners. There's opportunities to do things that are not high integrity. But when you have that written down and you say, no, that's not who we are. We only make high integrity products. Then it becomes, okay, well, that's who we are. And once those decisions are made that reinforces those guiding principles, then that becomes the culture of the organization. That's who we are. So it's got to be lived out. It can't be just in a dusty binder on the shelf. And honestly, I worked in corporate America for 21 years, and we had a lot of dusty binders on shelves, and we didn't live them out. And so I'm trying to do that differently in a smaller company.
I know what you mean. My first business plan was 630 something pages, and all it was good for was a paperweight. But I like what you said, though. It makes that decision when you're in your stand-up meeting on Friday morning, right, where they ask, should we airship those products in? That those guiding principles, and that we're a different kind of distributor or a different kind of manufacturer, answers that question, right?
Right.
And people begin to see that at some point we don't even need to ask that question because we know the answer. And
right.
Yeah, so I get that. I like that a lot. How do you, as a leader, show people that you value them? You talked a little bit about it earlier about knowing your people. Are there any other things that you guys do as a company that sort of stand out in your mind as helping to build the team and build that excitement about what you're doing?
So it's interesting. I just actually, there was just ADP research just did a study, and they showed that employees are 12 times more likely to be engaged if they feel they can trust their manager, their first line supervisor. 12 times more likely. And of course, you probably know Gallup has done survey year after year after year, right?
Yeah.
And 70% of employees are disengaged at work, right?
Yeah.
So the vast majority of employees are disengaged. And it's the same year after year after year on this Gallup study. So it hasn't changed much in 15 years. You probably know the data too. And so this latest study just said trust is actually maybe the way to change that, right? Do you trust your supervisor to have your back, to know who you are? And so I think in terms of our company, that's one of our guiding principles, right? That we will have a place, we actually say, where people enjoy coming to work and they're empowered, they're safe, and they're empowered to take care of our customers. So we give them that power. So that's a guiding principle. We live it out every day by, just us knowing each other. People say this when they come here, they say it feels more like a family than it does a company. I personally spend time on the shop floor. I'd pull out my work boots and you'd see they're all scuffed up, but I work on the shop floor on a regular basis. So if I get to the point where things are going well with my daily tasks, I throw on my boots, I go in there and I stand on the line next to my employees and we just talk as I'm helping produce the units. I can do every job in the factory except one, which is the electrical testing of the current transformers. I'm a little intimidated by that equipment, but so we have guys that know how to do that. So, but I run the forklift. I can pretty much run any part of the production facility. So it's this idea of just getting out there, spending time with people, and it's going back to my Navy days, right, where you spent 6 hours on watch with 4 people in a small room, and you really got to know them. You got to know how they tick and how you tick, and you. In my mind, you never want to get that us and them attitude between management and the workers.
I hate that.
It is the worst. I tell you, my first job out of the Navy, I worked for a global company, and I was in engineering, and they made all of us wear ties. We had to wear a tie to work. This is in the early 90s. Right. We all had to wear ties in engineering. And I spent a lot of time on the shop floor because I was doing new product development. We were making prototypes and things. Right. And so every time out, I'm got this tie on, and it was signaling to the workforce, I'm different than you. I'm special. I'm wearing a tie, and you're not wearing a tie. And it was a clear us and them, problem right from day one. And I try to eliminate that us and them. We're in it together, right? I have a different role than you do, right? I can't run that electrical test equipment, and that's more important to our customers than what I do, right? What I'm doing is just making sure the books are managed, and I'm talking to customers and what have you, but you're actually adding the value to the product right there. So everybody's just as important in the company. And so sometimes leaders put themselves at the top of the pyramid, that they're in charge and everything has to, kind of go to them. And I really think that we have to reverse that and actually help our employees have the parts they need, the procedures they need, the equipment they need to satisfy our customers. When you do that, it changes things up quite a bit. So
yeah, I mean, that's the biggest.
Yeah.
The biggest sign of a culture problem when I go into an organization is, somebody on the factory floor or somebody when I'm doing a 360 says, well, they made that decision, or, when they start using they and us, or they versus us, or whatever, that's the biggest sign of a massive culture problem, because
it is. It really is. It really is. Yeah. So we try not to let that. I always try to say that I just have a different role in the company. I'm not more important than any other person in the company. I just have a different role as the leader. So, I mean, the other thing is if you get it right, if you get the right people in an organization, it's great in a startup company, because we're 4 years into this. So the people that I have with me have really bought into the vision of our company, and they live it and breathe it every day. And so they're passionate, and they celebrate the successes. They're excited. We have a bell in our factory. Every time we get an order, we ring the bell and everybody cheers. And it's a fun place to work, and everybody's bought into the idea. And the thing is, you can have that in a big business too. And it's just that sometimes we're afraid to do that because, this particular manager doesn't like it, or, there's too many rules or what have you. But you can do that. Even when I was in a big company, I was doing it as well. So you can do this in a big company, you do it in a small company, but, make it fun, make it exciting, celebrate successes. I know all my employees' birthdays. It's real simple. You put it on your calendar, and it just reminds you got a birthday. Right. And so we always make sure that everybody gets a card signed by everybody on their birthday, and we always bring in, cake or something for everyone's birthday. So it's just a little thing to say, hey, we appreciate you as a person. It's not that hard to do, but yet we kind of miss it a lot,
If you can get a reminder on Facebook of some random person's birthday and wish them a happy birthday, you should definitely be doing it for your employees and your team. So
it's not that hard. Yeah.
Not that hard.
Yeah.
Any advice to somebody that's maybe in their first leadership job, that I gotta just remember those days where you are struggling really with decisions, you're struggling on how to react to something. And are there some things that you think that maybe books that you could read, things that you can do to learn on the job? Because I think one of the things I see again in my coaching with big companies and small is that, we take somebody that's good at some competency, right, at some skill, and
that's it.
Right. And then all of a sudden you say, hey, Joe, you've been such a great graphic designer. We're going to put you in charge of the department.
With, by the way, zero leadership training.
Zero, right.
We take individual contributors that are really good at their jobs, and we make them managers.
Whether they want it or not, sometimes.
Whether they want it or not. And so, and of course, what are you going to say? Well, no, I don't want the pay raise. I don't want the nicer office. I don't want the perks that come along with it. Okay, I'll do it. But yet there's very limited training that's ever taken place. And that's the sad part. I think if you look at, MBA programs right now, they have multiple courses in accounting, but maybe a lecture or two on leadership. There's really not much in leadership training in most MBA programs today. So we start out with an MBA student being told that numbers are more important than people. So it is a bit of a challenge. So I do have a chapter in the book that is about the first 100 days and what you should do as a new leader. But one of the things I like to do, and because I've been a new leader a lot, right? So I've run 9 different manufacturing plants in my career. So I've been that new leader coming in. Okay, you're looking around like, who do I got working here? What's going on? Right. But one of the things I like to do every time I take over as a new leader is I want to do one thing that's kind of that makes a lot of news, that gets people talking. Just one little thing that signals your value set. That everybody talks about. So I came into one plant. I took over responsibility for one plant with about 250 people, and I parked my car, in the parking lot the first day, and I noticed that it was a reserved parking spot for me, the general manager, and then all my managers had their own individual parking spot. So I walked in, I met my secretary, and I said, "Who's the maintenance manager?" And they told me who was, and I went and found him. I said, "Do you have any gray paint?" He said, "Yep." I said, "I want you to go over there. All the titles were on the concrete things, where you park your car." And I said, "I want you to paint over every one of those titles." I said, "There is no assigned parking in this factory." So a little thing like that, and then everybody talked about it. "Oh, Rennie, he's the new manager. Like, he did this. What does that mean?" So I always tell people that when you're in that first 30 days, all the eyes are on you, right? Everyone's looking at you. And so this is your opportunity, because honestly, 6 months down the road, no one's paying attention to you. So use these opportunities to really stress what your values are and what's important to you. And that's one of the things I like to do. And the other thing is it's not so much
a powerful message to those managers too.
Well, it did actually. It said that you're no more important than anyone else on the shop floor. So and it signaled. And the other thing I said was, if you want a good parking spot, get here early. So it was just a reminder that and we all, at that point, it became fun. Over the years, it became fun who would get the best parking spot, and people would brag about it. "I noticed you're parked in the back today," So it became a source of fun later on.
Right.
But everybody's watching you in that first 30 days. So it's a great opportunity to really talk about what your values are. But the other thing you need to do, and this is where I see a lot of leaders miss, is I do one-on-one meetings with as many people as I can, especially the key leaders and the key people, the people that have been there a long time. One-on-one meetings with them, and they're real simple. I say, "What's going right?" which is usually a small list. "What's going wrong?" And then I would say, "If you were me, what would you do first?" That's it. And then can you imagine this? After about 2 weeks of meeting with all the people, I have a long list of what's wrong, what's right, and what needs to be fixed, or what should I do right now? And you know what? It all coalesces on 3 things, 2 things that have to be done every time. So you're almost like a consultant. You just come in there and you just ask everybody, and then they'll tell you what needs to be done. And then the next thing you do is do one of those things.
Right.
And then the message is like, wow, he's listening. He cares. He's a manager we can trust. So it's really simple to talk to your people, get to know, and I'm frustrated when I see managers take over a role and then they just go in their office, shut the door, and start doing emails. And it's like the people are, what are we supposed to do? What do you stand for? We don't know. So do something that gets everybody's attention, and then take the time to meet one-on-one with as many people as possible and make that list. What's going wrong? What's going right? And if you were in my position, what would you do first? And that's really powerful.
Do you ever get any, when you did those 9 plants, did you get any pushback from management or current in the management that was sort of already there? I was working on a project, and the reason I asked is I was working on a project a couple of weeks ago, and there's some change management going on. There was new management coming in, and there was a lot of resistance by sort of middle management when one of the new sort of senior managers came in and said, I want to talk to some of your people, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a real reluctance for the middle sort of management to sort of open up to the idea of, and it was actually one of my recommendations that they do that, and that they go in and they talk to and find some of the leaders, because there are leaders on that factory floor. There are leaders on that. Or maybe not leaders, but influencers, right?
Yes.
And people who have a lot of influence on morale, have a lot of influence on the way people feel, and but there was a lot of culture stuff going on. But did you ever see any of that? Did you ever get any of that?
Yeah. So it's interesting, because that's where you usually find you might have some problems, right? So I actually do go talk to people several layers down when I do these one-on-one meetings, and that's actually one of the more difficult things when you come into a new organization, right? And you say, what's going wrong? What's going wrong? What's going right? And, what's the first thing I should do? And you hear that, oh, Jim he's like the worst. He does this, he does this, he does this. And then I talk to another employee, he says, Jim's the worst, he does this. And all of a sudden you realize, oh gosh, one of my biggest problems, I have a manager that's a problem, right?
Right.
And then, but I think it's still powerful that you do that, because now you have this piece of data that, all right, now, everybody acts a little differently, right? I always start off with people that you have a glass half full. I trust you. I want to work with you, right? But until you lower that water level, I give you a full level of trust. Some people start out with an empty glass, and you got to build their trust up. I'm the opposite. I believe with a full glass. So I hear all these stories, and I'm like, all right, I got a problem here. But I want to work with that person. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I want to see if they'll embrace a new leader and the way I'm going to do things. But then it's, 9 times out of 10 turns out that person is a problem, and you find out about it. You give them the benefit of the doubt, but then you find out he or she is undermining what you have to do, what you're trying to do. And sometimes you have to, make changes. And I've had to do it. I mean, I've had to fire plant managers. I mean, I've had multi-plant responsibility. I've had to fire plant managers. And that's never an easy thing. And it always comes after a long road of trying to get them on board and trying to address and coach and help. But sometimes you do have to part ways with people that don't get it or not going to get on board, unfortunately.
Yeah. What is you talk about in the book a little bit, people-centered leadership. Can you, I know that you've sort of covered a lot of that in what you've been talking about, but is it?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I use a quote from Colin Powell in the beginning that talks about, he actually says that, that leadership should be people-centric. So he uses the phrase. I don't think I use it much in the book myself, but I think if I reflect on what I'm trying to say in the book, it is people-centered. It's a people-centered approach. And what's interesting is that a few people have read my book and said, it's a lot about soft skills.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, wait a second. I'm a military guy, right? Hard skills. I want hard skills. I'm an engineer, right? Hard skill. But the truth of the matter is that we teach hard skills like accounting, engineering, manufacturing. These are hard skills. Soft skills are people and relationships and interpersonal skills and understanding, the emotions of situations and
right.
But the thing is, if you're really good at taking care of your people, they're going to take care of everything else. So yeah. Why isn't people skills a hard skill, and why is it considered a soft skill? And I think that's one of the things that I've been thinking about a little bit since I wrote the book, is that what I'm talking about are skills. I mean, leadership skills, and they're not soft skills. They're not hard skills. I think if you want to be successful, right? If you want an engaged workforce, you need to be an engaged leader. You need to be involved in people. You need to know them. You need to have a relationship with them, and they need to trust you, and they need to understand that what you're doing, what's best for them and what's best for the company. And to me, I don't think that's soft or hard. I think that's just being a leader. So people is not forgetting that it's people that get things done, not you, right? So you're there to motivate people to get things done, right? That's the 3 things in leadership, and it seems simple to me. So.
No, I agree. I think if we spend as much time, I like that term, engaged leadership. I like that a lot. I mean, because what it says is that you're responsible as a leader to engage, right? Not to sit and do emails, which are important, but right. You have to put just as much effort into that leadership and into your people as you do into the product or into the customer relationships, right? I mean, it's equally as important.
Yeah.
I think that's. So I know we've got to wrap it up. You've got your day ahead, but what's the best advice you ever got, and who was it from?
I'll give you this story. I had come up with a business plan, and I presented it to a manager, And he looked at it and he said, and I was already 70% market share in this business. And he said to me, what have you not thought of that could double your business? And my first reaction was, I've got 70% market share. I can't double my business. The math doesn't work. He said, what haven't you thought of to double your business? Go back and think about that and come back with a plan. And I didn't know how to react to that, but I spent a bunch of sleepless nights thinking about it. And I ended up thinking about businesses that were adjacent to us and changing what I thought our business really was. And we developed a whole new set of products that did almost similar to what our current product is. We expanded our portfolio. We saw a market that was 4 times as large as what we thought we were in. So suddenly we went from 70% market share to like whatever, 20% market share. And there was a growth plan. And we said, we got to get in these products. That's how we're going to do it. Presented him a plan. And what he did was he gave me the gift of a challenge. And I say that sometimes as leaders, we don't challenge our employees enough. We don't say, go back. I like your plan. You haven't thought about this. Come back with another plan. And that was one of the best things that I ever had happen from a leader. And it made me open my mind about the business, think differently about the business.
I love that. I wonder, did that person know the opportunity and he was just trying to challenge you to think of it as well, or
he had no idea?
He had no idea.
But he knew I was a good leader, and he knew I was very creative, and he knew I knew a lot about the industry. So I think he hoped I would come up with something, but I.
He probably knew you would. He probably knew you would.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, we got to trust our people to come to surprise us. Surprise us with their results, right? So there's a great quote about that. I can't remember who said it, but it said, don't tell people what to do. Tell them what needs to get done, and let them surprise you with the results. I think he was thinking that way. I'm gonna challenge him, and I'm gonna be surprised with what he comes back with. And I think he was, and I was, and so it really worked out. So give the gift of a challenge. So.
Hey, that prompted another question I had that I do have to ask now. How do you empower your people to make decisions? How do you give them the ability to do that, and you support those decisions? I mean, how do you?
This is a really great question. It's a really powerful question. So it comes down to, and the Navy was really good about this. It's responsibility and authority, right? The problem is that we tend to delegate responsibility to people, but not the authority to get it done, right? So we say, you're responsible for making sure to reduce warranty costs, but you're also not, you don't have any authority to write RMAs. You got to get approval for that or whatever. So we tend to delegate responsibility, but we don't delegate the authority to get it done. Right. So the military said the other way around. You can only delegate authority, but the responsibility always rides on the commanding officer or the officer in charge, right? So you can delegate authority, but not responsibility. In the corporate world, I noticed we delegate responsibility and not authority. If you want to empower people, you give them the responsibility and the authority to carry it out. So that's what I try to do. I make sure that I give people the permission they need to get the job done. So they're not coming to me for approval for every little thing that we try to do. So responsibility and authority and how that plays out. So if you think about the people that are working for you and you've got them, you've delegated some sort of responsibility to them, do they have the authority to make that happen?
Yeah, I like that. Well, thank you, Jon, for spending some time with us today. Thank you and the audience too as well for spending your lunchtime or your hour or so with us today. I hope you learned as much as I did. Now you can check out the website for upcoming shows. That is on powerlunch.live. Powerlunch.live. We are uploading these episodes as podcasts now. You can find that on the website. You can also watch past episodes as well from the website, and you can see the upcoming schedule. Great schedule next week. And the following week, we're going to be overseas, broadcasting from a conference in Albania, I think. Anyway, thank you so much. If you like the program, give it a like or share so that your network can benefit from these conversations. Jon, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.